Welcome to the Utah Puck Report. I'm your host, Jay Stevens. Got to, throw a huge thanks out to my sponsor, Larry H. Miller Toyota in Murray. Right now, I'm looking at it. You can go down and you can get yourself a 2025 Toyota RAV4. I know last week I almost called it an MRAP, but it's a RAV4. Lease 309 a month for 36 months, 3,999 due at signing. Guest today is Nick Fornelius. Been on the show a few times. Been a teammate of mine a time or two, and coaches the University of Utah men's two. And we'll get into what all that means, and we'll get into all that stuff. But Nick, thanks for being on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So Nick, obviously some big things happened with you with the Utah Mammoth, and I'm gonna wait. That's gonna be the prize at the bottom of the cereal box. And I want to talk about you a little bit and talk about the University of Utah a little bit and build all that stuff up. And then we'll get to, what's got to be some of the most exciting stuff that's been happening with you lately. And I want to know all of it because everybody knows my story about how I got kind of like we were talking about. I've been doing the show for a long time, and all of a sudden the NHL called me, and it's been just a roller coaster, and it's just been so much fun. I'm just trying to hang on and figure out my life now, which, a year ago I thought I had it all figured out. So, talk to us a little bit and remind everybody about. I know you grew up here. We talked about it before. You started playing when you were 3 years old. Where did you start playing? What are your first real hockey memories?
Yeah, I just remember my parents taking me to the rink, the learn to play. They called it Dynamites back in the day before it
Yeah.
was called Start Smart. And I just remember getting on the ice and falling down immediately and telling my dad that we were not going to leave the rink until I could skate. And that was kind of where it started. My dad was a long time Golden Eagles season ticket holder. He was a, Utah Grizzlies season ticket holder my whole life. And so being around him and him taking me to games just when I was, a baby, when I couldn't even walk. So I've just kind of been around hockey, basically right out of the womb and developed a passion for it by watching it, by my dad being such a fan, and then obviously getting into it and playing quite a bit myself.
Yeah. So you grew up here playing. Did you ever leave to go play juniors or midgets or anything like that? Were you one of the ones that had to leave?
No, so kind of a couple weird stories with that. I, the first time I ever tried out of state was for Pikes Peak for the U14 team, and I was always a small guy. And their coach wanted big guys. I thought I had the skill to play, but did not make the team. And obviously didn't have enough skill to overcome what he was looking for. And so that was kind of my first experience of not making a team because in Utah, I was, there were a few of us that were kind of always the guys around here, I guess you could say at a young age, that, when we got on the ice, like made stuff happen. And as I got older, for whatever reason, I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't play tier three juniors. I would only play the null or above. And I went to a null camp when I was 16 before I started working out and kind of putting
Yeah.
some muscle on. Me and Tegan Pitcher and Jordan Townsend were two good buddies of mine then, and we all went to this camp together. And from a physical perspective, we did not stack up, or at least I can say I did not stack up. And playing against guys that were 20, 21 was a wake up call for me in terms of what it took to play at that level. And for whatever reason, after trying out for the Minot Minotauros, I just never really made it back to try out for that level. Just I was involved with friends and different things in high school, and if I could go back and do it over again, I probably would have done things a little bit differently. But I had a lot of guys and friends that I played with that ended up going to the U. And so the U just became I want to go play with my friends. I want to go play there. And, obviously I had the opportunity to do that. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. But definitely if I was trying to reach the highest levels I could have as a hockey player, I'd probably go back and do a few things differently.
Right. But well, you skipped a step from the U because you had success here at Skyline High, right? Is that you went to Skyline,
Right.
right? And
Yeah.
you won a couple state championships?
Yeah. Yeah. Won two state championships back to back. with some guys that I played at the U with, guys like Dean Wilson, Doug Newell, Ben Seastrand, those kind of guys. So we had some success then, had success on youth teams between winning, state championships and going to nationals at U14 and at U16 and different levels, U18. But definitely enjoyed the high school days, being able to play with all my friends in the high school team. And we had a great high school team. In my opinion, one of the best Utah high school teams ever. Like guys like Daniel Brickley were on that team.
Right.
So NHL players, players that, played at the U, other junior level players. So really, really good group of guys and really great players to play with.
Yeah, that sounds like it's awesome, and it's always tough. Like you're trying to make decisions as a 15, 16, 17-year old. You don't realize how that's going to shape your future, and it's tough to leave friends and go do stuff and go like really put yourself out there. And like you said, you went in, and I think this happened to a lot of us because like my first tryout out of state, I was 6'2", maybe 157. And so I was just a beanpole walking in, and everybody's like, never seen the gym. Really, all I worked on was, well, I worked on the radio. That I did that,
Yeah.
and I stayed flexible. So yeah, it's kind of weird to go. And I think I remember in your generation, it seemed like they were pushing, don't let kids start weights until 13, 14 years old. It'll stunt their growth, and then you're
Definitely.
then you're 14 and you show up and everybody else is already ripped.
Yeah.
You're like, oh well, they're going to be short when they, it doesn't it doesn't really matter. So you get to the U and you have like what was your first year there like, and was it what you expected to play club hockey?
It was definitely different than I expected. I mean, I came in, I already had a lot of friends on the team that were older guys. They did a really good job taking me under their wing even before the season started. Just going to some stick and pucks, some pickup with some of the guys on the team, some of the leaders on the team, guys like Chase and Colton McDonald and Bo Bertinoli and those kinds of guys really did a great job. And, are kind of some of those names that you hear about in Utah hockey that have, done some great things. But I think at the time, the club hockey was looked probably more down upon at that time. And we stepped into a pretty good team. The U had kind of struggled for years up
Yeah.
until maybe 1 or 2 years prior. And I thought they ran it very professionally and, treated you as much as they could like an NCAA player.
I'll tell you, my time at the U, I've said this before. And I'm not bashing Weber State at all. I loved my time at Weber State. I went there. I got what I needed from the school, and then I needed another certification for the fire service to be, an EMT and a paramedic and all that stuff. But not to bore you with that. But when I got to the University of Utah, and the people that were running it at the time, Jim Jorgensen, um, Roger Courier, some other names that have been around for a long time, and Tony Mushi, these guys that have been around, they're all doctors, they're rocket scientists, they're running the University of Utah, like the hospital. Jim Jorgensen was in charge of the hospital. So like even when I wanted to apply for Life Flight, I walked in and said I was gonna give my paramedic certification in my application. He's like, "Oh yeah, let me take that." And then I got a phone call like 5 minutes later that I had a job offer, and it was like, man, the U was hooked up. Like the people that were there that were running the program were awesome. And then they ran into some problems when those guys left. And it sounds like and definitely now you guys are best in state, right? And again, I know I'm going to get hate because I'm a
Yeah.
Weaver State grad, but
Yeah.
um, I also played at the U. But it's fun to see that program, and it's fun to see how many of you guys have came out and been successful. So that had to help. Plus, you were successful on the ice. But did you find that many mentors that were like what I found? They were good mentors on the ice, and then also helping me figure out college and life.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say my teammates were the biggest mentors to me. We had a team when I went to the U that was quite a bit older than, in club hockey back in the day, you had a lot of older guys. You don't have that as much now where guys are 26, 27, 28 playing. We had that and they didn't have rules against that. And
Yeah.
so, when I went in, there were a lot of guys that had played their 2, 3 years of juniors, had played in the null, and then we're very focused on school and we're very good mentors to me and the other rookies that I came in with. in terms of just kind of showing us how things are done, how to be successful in the classroom, how to be successful on the ice. And our team too was very player ran in so many ways. We had a great coach in Bertinoli, but in terms of the, practices and things like that, there was a ton of player input into what was going on. And so it forced those guys that had been around for a little while to be mentors to everyone coming in and kind of showing the ropes.
Oh wow, that's cool. I didn't know that
Yeah.
that's how that went. All right, so before we move on to the next part, you told me a story one time, and I hope I'm remembering this right. That at the U you got a hat trick, but the third goal, you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm trying to remember now. I mean, I had a few.
I swear you told me you got a hat trick, and I think you were talking about your first hat trick at the U, but the third goal was in the shootout.
Uh,
No?
you might, I'm trying to think about the different ones that I had. That you might be right. I can't remember
Well,
which
I'm
shootout that
going off
was.
notes I had from the last show, like the last time you were on the show. And that didn't
Okay.
make this show, but it was in my notes. I have this old beat up notebook that I keep, like your notes are in here from
Yeah.
like every show I've done, all the notes are in here from the shows.
Wow.
Yeah.
No,
So,
I mean the one that comes to mind was the Wasatch Cup championship game against Utah State. I want to say the second or the third year, and I had a hat trick in that one, and that was probably at least the most important hat trick I had. I can't. You might have been talking about a youth hat trick that I had, where the
maybe
last goal
so.
was the game-winning goal in a shootout.
Maybe so. What is your best memory from playing at the U?
Man, we had so many. We had such a fun team. Um, Most of my memories from playing at the U, most of my best memories aren't stuff from being on the ice. It was the locker room,
Yeah.
before practices, after practices. It was the practices themselves. I remember trying to take pucks away from guys like Josh Dangle and Chase McDonald, and if you got the puck away from them, they would just absolutely come after you and be whacking you on the hands, giving you quite a, there's no ref out there in practice.
Right.
So they're giving it to you. I remember stuff like that. I remember a lot of the off the ice stuff, bus trips, hotels. As far as the on the ice stuff goes, I definitely remember our first Wasatch Cup win, which was the first year, we started the Wasatch Cup, and I think a double overtime game against Utah State with a penalty shot from Josh Dangle to win it after they had gotten a penalty shot and Chris Coma saved it. That
Ah.
was a really big one, and then we won two in a row after that. Nationals, we hosted nationals the first year, my rookie year on the team, and that was a great experience. Going to Philadelphia the next year, and having that kind of nationals experience away from home was incredible. And I turned 21 on that trip too, and so that was
Oh.
also fun, for other reasons, obviously. But
Yeah.
after we got eliminated, but so many great memories off the ice with so many great guys, and that's the stuff I remember the most.
I love that answer, and I ask that question a lot from a lot of guys, and it doesn't matter what level you played at. A lot of people say that. Like that's what I remember the most. And
Yeah.
I don't even half the time I don't even remember who we played against. Like I remember, where we went on road trips, but the best part was just the camaraderie. And I wish like I wish everybody else knew that part because it's so important to your development in life too. Like just to those friendships, and those are still people I reach out to. And to this day, people are like, they make fun of me because they think I should have a business card that says Jay Stevens, I know a guy. Because
Yeah.
if you need something, I know a guy, and it's somebody that I played hockey with. So if you
Yeah.
need a car or you need a house or you need, a lawyer or whatever, it's somebody I played hockey with. All my doctors, my dentists, like everything. They're people I played hockey with. And I think that's just the coolest thing about hockey. So I love that answer. All right, so let's get on to you finish up at the U, and I'm assuming you graduated, right? I'm not throwing you under the
Yeah.
bus here. Okay. Degree in economics?
Economics. Yeah.
See, my notes are pretty right. I got some stuff
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. You're on track.
So you graduate, and then uh, you and I are playing men's league together, and then all of a sudden how did you become a coach for the U?
Well, I coached a youth team for 2 years. So right after coaching at the U, I had a friend that I played youth with, Cody Bowen,
Yep.
and he was on the board for the Utah Golden Eagles out of Bountiful. And coaching, I had done some private lessons for a while, but I hadn't given a lot of thought to team coaching at the time. And he just reached out to me, said, "Hey, we need a coach for our U14 team," and wanted to see if it's something you're interested in. So I ended up with the Eagles coaching youth for a couple of years and really enjoyed that. That's an age group that I really enjoy working with, a U14, where they're, now they're starting to hit, and there's still so much you can give them in terms of skill development and thinking the game and all those things. And it's just, they're just funny kids, at that 13, 14-year-old age. So really enjoyed that. And then after those 2 years, AJ Bolden, who's the president for the University of Utah hockey team now, he called me and said that he was thinking about starting up the M2 team again. And we had the M1 team there, but there were so many teams, like Weber State, UVU, or BYU at the time,
Yeah.
Utah State, that were M2, but we didn't have an M2 team at the U to play them. And so it felt like kind of a missed opportunity there in that sense. And they wanted to start that back up. Felt like we had the traction for it. And so he gave me a call, kind of asking if I knew anyone that might be interested. And I was like, I don't know. Have you talked to, some of the, Chase McDonald or Josh Engel or some of these other guys? And he was like, well, actually, I called them and they said you might be interested. So that's in a roundabout way, I'm asking you. And just thought it'd be a great opportunity. And I had such a great experience with you. And when I went into it, I went into it with the mindset that I just want to give players the type of experience that I had or better,
Awesome.
so that they can enjoy college the way that I got to enjoy it. And that's kind of how I got into it. And then fast forward, and it's turned into some different stuff and some different objectives as well. But definitely, that's at the core of the coaching thing, is being able to give those guys the best experience possible.
That's awesome. And you're going into it with the right mindset. I love hearing that too, man. You're winning the interview today. You're
Thank
you're
you.
getting all
I
you're getting
appreciate
all
it.
the right answers. All right, so you're coaching and it's competitive. Tell me, are there things that came up and that I mean, because you grow as a coach too, right? Like from coaching
Totally.
U14s to coaching these kids. Do you remember things where you're like, oh, I can help that kid if I do this, or you see something on the ice and you're like, you start putting the pieces together in your head?
Definitely. I think I've had a unique opportunity to grow with the team as a coach. And to kind of give you some background on how our team has been, that first year at the U, we're starting a new team and we were awful. And we didn't win a lot of games. We are getting blown out of a lot of games against teams like Weber and against teams like Utah State, just not very competitive. And so, we're in the locker room, we're in, on our coaches meetings trying to figure out how can we make this better. And I think one thing that dawned upon us at the time, that has become very important moving forward, is it's not what you can get your players to, like, not what you can teach your players, it's what you can get them to understand. And so at the time, we had a lot of guys that were, Utah high school players that
Yeah.
hadn't played, high levels of hockey, or various different places, California high school, whatever it was. And trying to teach a lot of high level stuff at the time was not working. And so we had to simplify in order to stay competitive in some games and make it a very simple game for our team. As our team has developed and as the recruiting has gotten better and our team has gotten a lot better, and with, just a general base of talent from all over the country, I've been able to grow as a coach along with my coaching staff, to include more and more detail in everything that we're doing. And so I think that's been a unique thing. And definitely, as we've gone along, being collaborative with the players in terms of what's working and what's not, and what they're feeling about certain things and how they're seeing things on the ice. Because as on the ice is one thing and on the bench is another thing. And sometimes you're seeing something different. So you have to collaborate a little bit in that sense and try and find a middle ground where it's, hey, we need to play this way, but I understand what you're saying. And so we've just gotten better that way, I think, in terms of collaboration, in terms of making it a very inclusive process to make the team as good as it can be, but also with the better players coming in and being able to recruit better talent and have a better team, it's definitely helped me each year level up as a coach in terms of how much detail I can include with stuff and, running different systems, from period to period or game to game where, the first year we couldn't really do that. It was just trying to survive.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's awesome. And it's one of those things too, because if you bring in a better team, you got to be a better coach. Like you have to coach the team that you've got, right? So sometimes you
Right.
have to coach down. I remember one of my first years of coaching, I think I was coaching 16s. So it wasn't one of my first years, but I was coaching 16s. And half the season I've been yelling at my D. I'm like, hey, your gap control and you got to gap up. And finally, like halfway through the season, one of my defensemen came to me and he's like, I don't, I've never heard gap before. What like he had no idea what I was talking about. So I'm like, oh, that's totally on me. Like I should have known that, right? Like,
Yeah,
there were some discrepancies in the coaching that he had to that point where and it's just vernacular, right? Like he didn't know, but it's funny. But then you start coaching like juniors and you're like, oh, I gotta up my game because now they're better. They know more than I do half the time, and I gotta find a way to coach them. So
sure.
it's fun. And they say the best way to learn is to teach, right? And I found that with coaching.
Totally.
And then here you go. Then here you go, like 2025, ACHA Coach of the Year, right? Western Region Coach of the Year.
Yeah, and the national coach of the year. Yeah.
So what did that mean to you? Like, how do you find out about that? And do you get nominated for it? What's the process there?
Yeah, it's voted on by your peers. So it's even more of an honor to me, obviously, and to have my peers think that of me. And I found out about it through the ACHA, pretty much just like everyone else, like an Instagram post. I had heard some rumblings before, just basically this might be the case that they told AJ, and AJ is very connected with the ACHA too. Has just been around a long time and knows a lot of people, and so there was some talk that that might be the case, and that I might be the national coach of the year. But it's obviously an incredible honor, and like I said, it's peer voted, so an incredible honor to have your peers think of you that way. And I was super blessed this year to just have such a team that was just easy to coach. That we had spent these last 4 years building this culture, where the first year you just didn't have any culture at all. So it was very coach trying to institute the culture and, hey, here's what we did back in the day. Here's this idea, and not having a lot of culture. And then fast forward 4 years, and you had taken the time to build that up, get the right guys on the bus and the wrong guys off the bus, as Nick Saban says, and bring in a lot of captains of former teams and, guys that bring a lot of culture and a lot of personality to that locker room. And I think that that made it so easy to coach from a cultural perspective, where it was a little more plug and play. At the start of the year, guys come in, they buy in, they believe in what we're doing. And then from there, it's just coaching hockey. And so just having the opportunity to really dial into each practice. What do we need today? What are the important things that we're working on? Is it flowing together? Managing the team and talking with guys about, just keeping everyone engaged and everyone just bought into what we're doing. I think that was the biggest thing this last season, and hopefully led to a lot of our success. But obviously, you can't be a great coach without great players. And so we were pretty lucky to have some great players this year as well.
Yeah, I had some of you guys on my show at the beginning of the year, and they were phenomenal. Like fun to interview. You could tell, and that's the thing. And it's funny because it comes up whether I'm talking to you or Kiyoshi Rujin, or if I'm talking to Bear, right? It's the
Yeah,
same thing. You have to have the right culture in the locker room. And that's why when people were talking about who the Mammoth might be going after during the off season or during free agency, and they talk about something, I'm like, that doesn't plug in, man. That guy wouldn't fit with our guys now, and that would destroy the culture. And the culture is what we have going for us more than most teams. And a lot of that is because of, their rebirth, I think. But I talk about it all the time. One of the years I was coaching, I had both the Eckerts on my team, and they just came to every practice with so much energy and so much positivity that even when I was having those practices where you're just skating guys into the ground, and it's a puck practice. Like I'm not back skating them. I'm doing drills with purpose, and we're doing systems with purpose, but the repetitions getting to them, and their
yeah.
attitudes were always good, and it made us so much better just having that culture. And man, if you could bottle that and figure that out, right, that'd make it so much easier to be a coach.
Oh, yeah, I can agree more. Like, I would say the culture is at the basis of having a good team. And if you don't have the culture, you can have the best players in the world, but if it's not all bought in and a cohesive unit, you're going to struggle.
Yeah, and we've seen that in the NHL. We've seen
Yeah.
teams that have all the right players, just not the right culture, or all the on paper they're the right players. So all right, so you become coach of the year, and then obviously you're thinking to yourself, next step's clearly the NHL, right? Like ACHA coach of the year, and then I'll just be getting a phone call from the NHL, right? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, I don't know if that's, along the same train of thought, but obviously it helps to get some of that, award notoriety to get your name out there a little bit more. But I'm not sure I've seen a whole lot of ACHA straight to the NHL. Yeah.
But you get a phone call. Tell me how this thing with the mammoth. Tell me what it was and how you found out about it first.
Yeah, so I got an email from Kristen Bonus, who's I think she's the director of youth programming, or just their
Yeah,
youth program in general.
yeah.
And she shot me an email and just said, "Hey, we're starting our coach internship program back up. They didn't do it last year because obviously it was such a scramble, I think, to get everything put together with bringing the team here. But they had done it years prior." And she shot me an email, said, "Hey, we're doing this. Send over your coaching resume. Let us know if this is something you're interested in." And at first, when I got the email, I thought it was very kind of like a widespread thing. Like they probably sent this to a bunch of people,
Yeah.
and there's going to be a ton of youth coaches there, whatever it is. And I went to the rink, and my good friend Garrett Metcalf, who was up at camp with me, was like, "Hey, are you going to dev camp?" And I was like, "Yeah, I am." And he was like, "Oh, me too. We're the only two guys that are doing it." And so I didn't realize it was a bit more of an exclusive thing. And so I was stoked to obviously have one of my friends being the other coach that was going up there. But it's their coaching internship program, and you're up there as a guest coach for the week of development camp. And we were basically involved in everything that was going on up there. And so it was like being an NHL coach for a week, and got to be in, pretty much all the meetings and work with the players and work with the dev staff and the AHL staff, and their NHL staff a little bit, and incredible experience.
What's it like as a like you're a hockey nut just like me. You live and
Yeah.
breathe hockey. You play all the time and you're good. Like, right? And
All
now
right.
you step on the ice with TJ Ginla and Caleb Denoyer and like what's it like to be on the ice with all those drafted legit really good players? Were you like, "Hey, I could probably walk this guy," or were you blown away at their skill?
Yeah, definitely blown away with their attention to detail and definitely their skill. I think that was one of my big takeaways, was just the attention to detail and the intensity that guys are hitting every rep with. And that's what makes them the best. That's what makes them a first round draft pick. I wasn't thinking in my mind so much that I, could walk these guys. I'm definitely past my prime in my playing career. I'm still all right, but I'm not. I don't have the pop I used to have. That's for sure. But I think like one thing I've learned as a coach, and one thing I've had to learn, especially as the U has gotten better, is it's not about coaching isn't about me being better than you and trying to make you as good as me. In fact, it's the opposite. It is I need to make you, my job is to make you better than me and impart all the knowledge that I have. And that was kind of a big step for me as a coach, was realizing, Connor McDavid's coach is never going to be better than him. There's no coach in
Right.
the world that's better than Connor McDavid, but they coach him anyway and still help him grow his game. And that shift in thinking from I need to be better than all my players to I need to make sure all my players are better than me and that I can just impart all that knowledge on them, that was huge for me. And so I just tried to take that into camp last week in terms of, I'm definitely blown away by their skill. And I just tried to pick my spots where I could add a little bit of value, whether it was a little bit of footwork on something or some puck positioning or some kind of attention to detail that they already have a great grasp on. And we were doing a lot of skill work that was these simple ideas that their dev coaches did such a good job layering levels of skill onto and building off of, and just trying to be a part of that and add a little piece here and there where I could. We had so many coaches up there. There's, I mean, their dev staff, I think, is the biggest in the NHL. And the
Oh,
reason for that being that they have the most draft picks in the last 5 years in the
yeah,
NHL. And so they have
yeah.
a huge draft development staff to accommodate that and make sure that these guys are getting the best opportunity possible to play in the NHL and play in the NHL for the Utah Mammoth. And so with so many guys on the ice, it was nice for me to be able to kind of step back and just help pass some pucks and shoot some pucks and be a part of a drill so that those guys could watch and coach as much as they could as well. And I just did my best to listen and learn as much as possible.
So now looking back, I saw you on the bench for the scrimmage, and you're out there coaching, and it had to be a whirlwind of a weekend or of a week.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now you look
definitely.
back, tell me the highlights. And everything you just said is basically a highlight. But when you think about it, and you think about being in the meetings and being around all those people and being just part of the NHL, which is all of our dreams, right?
Yeah.
Like, what stands out from that week? What were your biggest highlights?
I think, yeah, there were long days for sure. So Garrett and I would meet up in the morning because dev camp, most of dev camp was up in Park City. And so we'd meet up at the base of the canyon, drive up together, and then we drove back down together. And so we were up at 5 a.m. and then not getting home at night until 10:30 p.m. and then back at it again the next day. So it's definitely long, grinding days, but I think we did a good job making the most out of it that we could and just soaking in every single minute. For me, the highlights and the takeaways were for the most part the connections that I got to make with the other coaches. I definitely felt like I connected pretty well with the AHL head coach down in Tucson, and he was kind of the guy that I got to bounce a lot of ideas off of in terms of strategy and systems and stuff like that. And just a great guy, and I think that we saw the game in similar ways. And so he gave me a lot of insight on, how he sees the game and what they like to do. And so that was really, as a hockey nut, like you said, that's kind of, as the coach in me is like, talking about the systems and the strategy and all that stuff and how can I make a difference for my team in that way. And then just being a part of the meetings with the development staff and with the HL coaching staff and the skating coach and the skills coach, and just going over the practice plan. It was eye-opening to me the amount of preparation for those guys that goes into 1 hour of practice
Yeah.
or 20 minutes of practice, and taking a drill and a skill and then building that out to an hour long kind of idea that's getting layered on top of each other, and just the ideas bouncing around the room. Is this drill the right drill? Are we getting out of it what we want to get out of it? How are we building off of it? Does it flow well? Does it connect with what we worked on with Lars, the skating coach, in the prior hour? How is it building into tomorrow? And so talking with those guys and just the amount of preparation that goes into an hour of ice, or Kyle Bocek, their head skills coach. He's phenomenal and has a great eye for the game in terms of, they use analytics so much now and everything else. And so talking to him about how they're using the analytics, and he had a great presentation while we were up there about goal scoring and what's a good shot and what's a bad shot and percentages. And I just gained so much from that. So a lot of stuff that I wish I would have known when I played. I probably would
Yeah, I
have scored
bet.
a lot more goals. Those were the highlights for me. And then obviously just getting to interact with some of the players too, like, Desi and Iggy, and talking with some of these guys. And even if it's just, them doing a drill, and, Desi was so funny. He's such a confident player, and, it definitely has a bit of an aura about him where he's doing a drill, and at the end of it, he'll, see you and he's like, smooth, eh? And I'm just like, yeah, yeah, very smooth, Desi. And so just funny stuff like that, where you just, interacted with those guys and put some pressure on them in drills and see how they react to it, and, their attention to detail, and the intensity that they attack every rep with is what got them to where they are now with, that work ethic. Those were the highlights for me. And just meeting everyone, whether it's Bill Armstrong or Chris Armstrong or Bear, everyone was so kind in the organization and so inviting, and just really made you feel like part of a team for the week.
Yeah, what a great experience for you, man. I was so happy to see it. And I knew other teams were doing stuff like that. And it made sense they couldn't do it the first year because they didn't have, like, Kristen Bonus wasn't here. She didn't have that job yet. She was still, I think she was with the Kraken or the Avs. but it's like they hadn't built that part of the team back out yet.
Right.
So yeah, it makes sense that they couldn't do it. And I'm so glad to see you and Garrett get that chance. Like you guys have earned it. You know, everything you guys do makes the rest of us look good. The Utah youth organization, you guys are good representations of that. So it's fun to see you guys succeed. And speaking of which, man, what's next for the University of Utah? How are you guys looking? What should we? Is the team made? Do you have tryouts coming up, or have you already put it all together?
Yeah. Yeah, teams made. Yeah, we had our tryouts back in April. So we had a decent amount of players leave, 9 or 10, off the top of my head. And it's sad in a way because a lot of the guys that left this year were the guys that we started the team with, that kind
Oh,
of made it this far to win it from a team that wasn't competitive to a team that was going to nationals. And there are a lot of guys from that first year, those first 2 years that didn't make it that far. And so I was so happy as a coach to see these guys that did get to experience a trip to nationals and experience that success before their time was done. And now kind of moving into the next phase at the U where, okay, we've been to nationals. Now it's time to compete at nationals and to compete for a national championship. And we brought in some new guys this year that we think are going to help with that. I'm definitely going to take a lot of my experience from development camp with the Mammoth and try and bring that to the team this year and add some new things. And then obviously our coaching staff last year it was their first year coaching and they did such a phenomenal job. And I think they'll be able to build off that as well and going into their second year have a great, experience from that first year, what we did well, what we need to do better, and try and bring that to, the guys this year to give them the best chance to succeed.
that's awesome. When you were putting it together, did the Mammoth, the fact that we had the NHL here now, do you think that helped you recruiting at all, or is it just the you?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think there's multiple factors going into that. Like obviously having the NHL team here makes it a bigger hockey hotspot. The Olympics coming in 2034, maybe doesn't have as much direct help now, but definitely is on the mind of people. The U obviously helps too because, it's a premier university in the West. And like I said, the players that come to the U, we try and make it as much like an NCAA team as we can, with in mind that it is player funded and it is club hockey. And so we do as much as we can to make it the best possible experience. So I think all those things help, along with having both the M2 team and the M1 team going to nationals this year and having success. I mean, the M1 team was a top 10 ranked team in the nation all year. And so having success for both teams helps. And then the last piece of that, I think, is just the fact that club hockey's growing.
Yeah,
And, you have teams like UNLV this year scrimmage DU and win.
yeah.
Whether they should have or shouldn't have, is another discussion. But the fact that that was even on the radar and was such a big event. Like club hockey's getting better. CHL guys, that CHL rule with those guys being able to
Oh
come down
yeah.
to NCAA, we feel that trickle down even already this year with, talking to guys from D3 schools that are transferring to club, guys that would have gone to D3 schools that are just, they're like, hey, I think I will enjoy my experience better at the club level. And so I think the growth of club hockey and at the M2, M3, M1 levels, the top teams in those levels are competing with the top teams of the next level. It's not like totally like M1, everyone in M1 is better than M2 and everyone in M2 is better than M3. Like the top teams in M3 are beating most of the teams in M2 and M1. And same with M2. And M1 obviously at the highest level is competing with some of these NCAA teams. And the Arizona States that went NCAA that competed with NCAA teams beforehand when they were club, Lindenwood, Penn State, all that stuff. I think that club hockey is just growing, and that definitely helps with the recruiting as well.
Didn't so and UNLV went on to win it, right?
Yeah, they're national champions.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty impressive. And the more I hear about it, like I'm so thankful that I had the opportunity to play club, and it got me. Well, it's why I went to school. Honestly, like after things didn't work out in North Dakota, I came back and I was like, hey, this is still a great opportunity, and it got me exactly what I needed to start my career. Like
Yeah.
it's amazing. It's a great tool, and man, I'd play it now if I could. It's
Yeah.
like
Me too.
it's enjoyable. So, well, man, we're just proud of you. We're proud of you and Garrett, and thank you for taking the time to be on the show. And we can't wait. I want to have you check in, bring some of your boys down during the season. Come to the studio. Let's talk about how things are going, and we'll just keep pumping your guys' tire, and you can use it as a promotional video to get some more guys next year.
Hey, absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me on, Jay. It's always a pleasure.
All right, buddy. Thank you. And that is the Utah Puck Report.